Amazing. So I'm here again with another one-to-one discussion about AI and the impact it's going to have in the built environment. Today I've got Joe Short from Demand Logic. He'll introduce himself in a second. Just a quick recap on what we're doing here. It's in partnership with the Red Foundation, and we're looking at the impact of AI in the built environment and talking to people across the sector in different verticals to get a bit of an understanding of maybe how they're using AI, where they see it going, the impact it might have, and all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, Joe, I mean, if you could maybe give us a quick introduction and tell us a bit about what Demand Logic do, and then we'll get into it.
Sure, thanks Alex, and great to talk to you. Yes, so I'm Joe Short, I'm Chief Scientist at Demand Logic, and we are a building analytics company. That means AI, if you like, and data science is our whole work. Our job is to our job is to create a data lake from all of the equipment that we can possibly speak to in a building, and turn that data lake into insight to help teams to increase the performance of that building, and more importantly, to reduce its energy usage.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I imagine, the topic of AI has certainly been discussed within your organisation, how it could be impacted and what impact it might have. So, I mean, it'd be good to understand, I suppose, what opportunities you see for AI integration within your area of building analytics and energy reduction and that sort of stuff. Where do you see?
So obviously, huge opportunity for us, but I can probably help break it down a bit.
Yeah,
into some chunks. I mean, our whole job is data.
Yeah.
But more importantly, we have to have our feet very firmly on the ground. We have to speak to busy property managers and engineers in buildings with an easy to understand platform that suggests remedies to increase performance. So we can't be all kind of techie hype. We have to actually appeal to some very busy, very time poor people. But in summary, so our interest in AI is, so we have a data collector. Well, we consume from lots of different data sources in a building, and our job is to harvest as much time series information and metadata from a building that we can. And then, like I said, to keep that as a treasure chest that we then can continually change the way that we interpret that and turn it into insight for people to make changes in the building. So the first step is what we call onboarding. So the first step is to literally understand what you found. So we have sort of automated data collection devices, data acquisition devices. They scan the building for everything they can find. And
what sort of things are you looking for, Joe? Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. No, keep interrupting. That's much better. Yeah, so all of the heating, ventilation equipment in a building, pumps, chillers, fans, boilers, terminal units, which are the sort of aircon devices above your head in an office. I mean, a building can have anything from, when it can have sort of 1,000 to 30,000 of these devices, each of which has its own sort of micro brain, and each of which can be, it's almost like a kind of Internet of Things, but in the building itself. So each one of these devices has its own life and can be asked questions by our polling device or other cloud-based integration platforms. So we gather all that data, and so the first task is to understand what we've got. And so you can imagine we keeping up to date with AI all the time in terms of making that job easier. What we've got to do is we've got to turn all of that rather sometimes very imperfect data, right? So you've got some quite old technology sometimes in buildings that you find. You've got some strange customs, people who've installed the controllers that open and close flaps and do all of these things in the building. They've labeled those in their own way. And we find all of that, and we have to figure out not just that there is an aircon unit there, but that what might it be connected to. So a lot of our insight is going to get right, press the too much detail button whenever you want, right? Because
No,
I'm
no,
gonna
no.
just just gonna go too detailed. But we have to find out what's there in terms of the equipment, but we also have to interconnect it, figure out what systems it's connected to, and
And
make
imagine,
a model.
and imagine most buildings are, totally different. They've got different makes, different manufacturers, different things. Some can do some can do some things, some can do others. Some are maybe a bit dumb, some are a bit smart. I don't know.
Absolutely, and you're on it there because we've got to make them all the same.
Yeah.
So we don't want to. Let's just to give you an example. We don't. Let me imagine we have an idea for an insight finding machine that's going to tell you when something's wrong with a chiller, say. Maybe it's cycling too often, or it's not on set point, or whatever. All of the issues a chiller could suffer from,
Yeah.
or perform well or badly. So we have all kinds of scoring for every device and every room and meeting room and everything. So imagine you have a little machine in our cloud system that knows how to tell you about chillers. Well, it
Mm.
doesn't know every single chiller, but so we have to have a layer in our cloud, which is the generic chiller. And we have to
Yes.
turn everything we find in a building into digital twins that our next layer up can understand.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I get
it's
it.
so the
Mm.
platform can then show you findings from all of our little virtual machines that are figuring out what's wrong with the terminal units or the chillers or the pumps, and well, not just wrong, but how are they scoring? What's the comfort levels in all of the spaces and all of that.
So I can
So that's
imagine AI being really impactful potentially there, trying to just gather all that data, but I don't know how far that is
yes.
that
I mean,
some.
to us, AI is not new, right? So we're dealing with a kind of I mean, that this happens. It's happening in several waves of revolution, isn't it? AI. So
Mm.
um, when I was younger, obviously neural nets were hitting, and I was learning about those in quite a raw way, quite a low level way. That then improved and improved and improved. In the 90s, you had much better modeling of neurons, if you like.
Mm.
You had some great mathematical innovations modeling the units that are used in all of these big neural nets. You then had deep learning coming in, and that's simply the realization that if you make the network bigger and bigger and bigger, it can tell you more and more. And then more recently, so 2, 3 years, whatever it is, we've had the revolution in language specific large language models, and they're very different. As in, well, they stand on the same technology,
Yeah.
uh, but what's going on with those is that they have. I mean, the comparison I like to make is that the large language models, Gemini, ChatGPT, they have read the internet. Demand Logic has read the buildings.
Yeah.
So
That's a good analogy.
yes, so we are all over. We're bowled over, aren't we, by what some of these models can do
Mm.
because they have really, really drilled into what language is. So and they do that brilliantly. But the technology that's driving those can drive into other things too,
Of
and has
course.
been for a long time. So that
Yeah.
first
So
wave
it's
of
sort of coming to the public, sort of into the public domain almost in terms of, oh wow, look at this, this is amazing. But actually the technology it's been built on has been utilized for a while in other areas,
yes,
maybe not as advanced, but obviously, but
yeah. I mean,
it's
it
there.
has all happened quickly, but not. I mean, that most recent revolution of the large language models is staggering.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
it's also interesting for us because, so we've been using. I mean, our actual most of our tooling, how to turn all of what our data collectors find into digital twins. Most of that we do through kind of clever tooling, rules
Mm.
based. And
Mm.
we should never forget this, right? Because AI has come along doesn't mean we throw everything else away.
No.
Actually, you do need rules as well, especially if you're going to make new algorithms that analyze why machinery is going wrong. You need to guarantee that some of the time series you're looking at have all been cleaned up in certain ways and all have
Yeah, I was
meaning
going to say,
attached to them.
isn't that AI required? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's just, doesn't AI require to have those rules to be in place for it to be able to learn the right information and that sort of stuff? Or am I grabbing the wrong end of the stick?
No, you're not grabbing. I mean, the answer is both. It's called tagging in general. In machine learning, has had lots of different names, but yes, I mean, you can contextualize your data, it's interesting that more recently, the data scientists are saying don't categorize as much, leave it to the AI.
I
But
see.
that's for specific use cases. We actually want the tags too. So we want to be able to prove, like imagine, so we have an insight pops up in the platform. It says it looks like something, I don't know. So it looks like your set point achievement throughout the east facade or on floor 2 or something like that isn't up to muster. It's very simple finding. It's fine. An AI could find that if you just left it into the big black box kind of approach, an AI could find that, but it wouldn't be able to tell you why.
Yeah.
So it would say, I found this. I mean, that's going to be very useful. I'll talk about this in a minute, especially abnormality detection. That's
Okay.
where these things are incredibly useful. But we need to have the history, the charts, the report that says, yeah, look, it was bad. It was especially bad last Tuesday. So we have to have all of our histories and time series and especially the time series with the meaning attached, so that we could show all of the chillers or all of the terminal units and say they all had this metric or this
Yeah.
score. We have to make them all look the same. So we do need that tag data.
Mm.
And the industry's been, lots of different candidates for how to tag that sort of thing. And we don't, well, I won't go into too much detail, but we have to make it meaningful for our own physical model
Yeah.
of the building. That's what we're after. So that whole thing that I talked about there is called onboarding. We call that. So that's using techniques, AI, otherwise human assisted. By the way, is massively important,
Mm.
especially when you've got limited R&D resources. So you're trying to figure out how to wield this new technology in the most beneficial way for the company. What you don't
Mm.
want to do is you don't want to go quiet for years while you
Yeah.
hatch some great answer to everything machine. What you
Yeah.
need is you need to dovetail the tools to help the people that are already on board. So it's
Yeah.
it's AI assisting tools that are where we're at. So it's like saying, yeah, I think I found this many boilers. Am I right or wrong? And you go, yeah, that's okay.
Mm.
Yes. Actually, yeah, take all that on board. Well, yeah, they're all connected to this particular system. Yes, yes, yes. So that's where we're heading, is to just make that whole toolbox more and more efficient so that buildings are onboarded quicker.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so big category for us is that. And another category, I think the industry calls it sort of fault diagnosis and detection,
Mm-hmm.
fault detection and diagnosis. And obviously, because we are tracking, I don't know what to say first. I'm going to just splurge at you all the stuff. So
Go
the
for it.
biggest task for us, I mean, this is kind of a piece of advice as well, I would say.
Yeah.
The challenge that we have to do is hold on to the source truth,
Mm.
and save it, basically. And that's incredibly important because we change our assumptions about how to interpret that data, how to model it, what digital twins to create, what charts and insights, what scoring. We change our minds about that. We innovate on that. And
Yes.
when we do, when we create better insight visualizations and scoring systems, we want them to apply to the whole history. So that's why the job is data. It's the main job. It's making sure that you have a wholesale capture of as much as you can,
Mm.
and you keep it in its original form.
Yeah, because you're going to sort of
Yeah.
utilize it, and I suppose one thing leads to another, to another, to another, and before you know, you're miles away from where you started in some respects. But you need to be able to
Yeah.
reapply new thinkings and findings to the original data that you've sourced. Is what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that, what you call that, fault classification. And so that's a big one for us. I mean, we started early on looking at sort of some quite low level machine learning techniques like clustering, drawing dots of little clouds of all of the aircon units and seeing which ones are similar.
Okay.
Which ones are suffering from a particular problem, stuck valves or
So looking for patterns.
all of that, looking for patterns, exactly. So that journey started a long time ago for us. But interestingly, the thing that's shipping our features is still quite rules based.
Mm-hmm.
but we've got to make sure that our data lake is the best training set it can be as AI improves. So that's our challenge, is to
So
make.
are you then going in, when you're speaking to clients and that sort of stuff, is it sort of advising them on improving how they sort, to get the data? So, well, we can do this, that, and the other. We can help you to save X amount of energy or whatever it might be. But if you had these sensors in place, or you had this, that, and the other, we could go further. Or is that like trying to make the
Yeah,
building
absolutely.
smart?
Exactly. That's definitely true. So helping them with their whole data picture. Interestingly, we want to evaluate automatically the health of the data itself. So we're looking at that as a way forward. But the important thing, though, Alex, is also what can happen if you're not careful is you get into a big sensor project where you're buying new equipment to monitor or sense or collect. Now, sometimes you need to do that. Absolutely need to do that. But where the company really got moving was to work with what's there immediately. And so that's kind of why we started quite pragmatically with the building management system, the interconnected network of controllers. Yes. Now they're all in different.
There to run it. Yeah.
You've got to have it in there to run it. They have a mixed reputation. We think they're brilliant, but yeah, but they're totally underused. They are an Internet of Things for the building already. So the important job for us is, yes, we want to start conversations with customers and help them improve the whole data picture. And there's some great sensors. There are some brilliant, very easily deployable, tiny tile-like sensors that go in, and we partner with companies that provide those, and we can improve the data capture. That's really important. But from day one, we can't be silent. We have to work with what's there straight away. And you've got the temperature in every room from a building management system. There's quality issues around some of the temperatures, but we've got to deal with that reality. That's kind of where we began. Capture all of that, turn it into insight, and the rest is improvement.
Excellent. So obviously you were talking about fault detection. Obviously the data quality is really important. That's the theme that has come up in a lot of these conversations. Obviously, if you training the AI, it needs to be trained off of the right sort of data. But I mean, where do you see maybe the new generation of AI having its biggest impact for you guys, and or the broadest sort of building management space?
So, the really new stuff, large models that are run off-site. That you can interface with. So as you know, there's loads of providers of those now, and they will say you can ask our AI questions and provide answers. That's called prompt engineering, where you engineer a pretty detailed question, normally pre-packed with a lot of context for the AI. And you say, and you put a nice deep prompt together, then you append to that some little question that you have about your data, and then you send it off and get a reply. So that's the new resource that wasn't there before. But we mustn't run away with or get too excited. Okay, so that's incredibly, they are breathtaking. And so obviously companies like us, we're looking, our focus has always been numerical, time series data, what's happening to the temperatures, of all the water, circulating water, and all of those sort of physics questions. So we have a massive time series database of that. You wouldn't throw those at a large language model. They're specialists in language.
Yes, of course.
But having said that, we are building, as you can imagine, we have lots of humans on the platform. They are investigating buildings using our platform. They're finding all kinds of issues, and they flag them up. And our engineers are constantly, gently making findings, very, very diplomatically saying, it looks like maybe cooling and heating the same space here, or whatever it is. Maybe this is worth investigating. Yeah, the whole group of people are so busy. It's phenomenal. So the practical interfacing with the humans here is so challenging. You've got to provide something. You've got to not be arrogant, and you've got to state your findings, but you've also got to tell them what the most important finding is. Look here first. Draw your eye to this particular issue. I'm going all over the place now, Alex, but that's why we. I mean, that's kind of my thing at the moment. Is how can you create? You know about KPIs. How we call them scores, KPIs, metrics. How do you make? How do you present to a busy person a whole pyramid of issues that are going wrong in the building? What you'd like to do is you'd like to tell the strategic folks the top of the pyramid only.
Yeah.
You want to say this building's doing okay. Don't even look.
Yeah, you'd have to worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Look at this one, and why is its DL score degrading? And it looks like it's a maintenance issue. Okay, why? And then depending on how much time you have, you can drill down into those issues. Now, at the bottom of that pyramid is the stuff I've been talking about. Thousands of pieces of equipment all giving their time series. You can't. You've got to lure someone into that world gently, and also different people have different. Obviously roles. So some of them are going to say, "Look, delegate." As soon as they find part of the building that's suffering from issue Y, they will then delegate that. So what brought me to this was that there are humans interacting with the platform all the time, creating insight kind of linked with the digital twins, and that is a dynamite training set, you can imagine. So you've got we're watching every pump and every fan for eons in more 200 buildings or more. All of the human insight. So at some point somebody noticed that this was an issue of this kind.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm talking about that is because that's the data lake. That's what. Now we don't want to rush to. We don't need to kind of compete with the AI hype, if you like. We don't. Just before the interview, one of the apps presented to you, didn't it? A little AI assistant. Oh, hello, pop-up thing. Now we could do a bit of that, but that is not the point for us. The point for us is to make sure that those AIs just drill into what's actually happening in a deep way in the building. So we don't really need to play the hype game. No. We need to concentrate on what's important to us, which is creating this enormous bucket of information that combines human knowledge with the time series data we found in the building.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I suppose maybe, you're talking about communication with the human element of the people controlling the buildings or making the decisions on what they want to do with the buildings. I suppose maybe the language models might help in that interaction. Or
yes, sorry, yes, absolutely. So like I was saying, so the engineers and consultants have added their insights to the platform. Yes, and they do that in words, of course, exactly. So this is, I was talking about onboarding and fault finding. There's another category for us, which is a sort of new kid on the block, which is kind of summarizing issues using language. So that and we're getting, and this is prompt engineering again, but we're getting some good results, good test results, if you like, of just sort of saying, look, what would you tell a busy building manager if the platform told you this?
Yeah.
And the humans told you this. How would you summarize that? Now, often it gets it wrong. There's a lot of creativity. The creativity can be an issue with the large language models. And also that's going to become increasingly, we're going to become increasingly intolerant to that creativity. As the revolution happens, and we're going to get more and more AI generated content.
Yeah.
There's going to be, I think, a journey. There's going to be a widening out with insight coming from all sorts of AI sources. Then there's going to, I think, be a bit of a disappointment, and some skepticism, as we realize that we're struggling to figure out which ones to trust and which ones not to trust. And then I think there's going to be, like there are with a lot of tech revolutions, there's then going to be a paring down. And it's going, okay, so which products and which tools are not lying to me, are not just trying to wow me. They're actually they can link a claim, if you like. I think this is happening in the building with some evidence.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, and I think that's, I think we're quite well placed to be in the middle of that funnel that's closing.
Yeah, of
And I
course.
think yes, that's quite important for companies like ours to just hold on to what you've got, which is
Yeah,
the
don't get carried away with the hype, I
yes.
suppose. You know,
Yeah,
we're in the middle of the hype. Well, probably on the way up the hype curve, or if not at the top or whatever. But yeah,
yeah.
it's probably AI fatigue will be coming in, and
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I mean, the recent step forward has, you know, it's taken everyone's breath away. I mean, you know, my
yeah,
background was a combination of physics, but also philosophy. Uh, and it's really hit home. The whole revolution in large language models has got close to I mean, it's not general intelligence, but
sort of
the
passing
level
on
you
tune.
can get to manipulating concepts with language, you know, I had no idea they were going to be that good.
No,
I mean, I'd
they're
done,
phenomenal.
yeah, so I'd done some neural net stuff in the early days that they used to, you know, where you get it to read Alice in Wonderland, and then
Yeah,
it has to trot out in the style of, um, you know, and that was pretty cool. And that was using recurrent neural nets, which is the same ones that in our tests that we're doing about classifying, and you know, so it's the same underlying technologies at a much smaller scale, right? So the thing that's happened with large language models is scale. I mean, they're staggeringly big.
mm,
Um, you know, billions of modeled neurons.
crazy.
Um, yeah, and so don't get me wrong, that has staggered everybody, and we'd be daft not to use that to get some understanding from the human words that have been put into our platform, as well as some of the summary information. And you know, and we're doing that, but it will only take you so far. The thing that the gold, if you like, is going back to the basics, looking at directly applying a model, a neural network, to the time series data. That's what
That's where it's going to have.
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And you know, our early work in that is very encouraging. Most of our work has been on the onboarding, as you can imagine. So because we've got limited R&D resources, we have to put those into things that can help us scale. We know the
Mm,
data's good, and we know that the philosophy we had at the beginning of just capture all of the source truth is the right one. So we don't have to panic about that. That's great. The data's coming in and being logged. Um, I've lost my thread now, Alex. Where was I?
yeah.
At,
Well, we were talking about the, you know, I suppose that impact, the impact that that it would have, you know, the biggest impact, the gold you were talking about.
yeah, yes, sorry, yes, that's right. So the goal is to directly apply the deep learning to the time series data,
That's right.
and
Yes,
a classic benefit of that is what is called abnormality detection,
that's what we
or
touched on before. Underlying stat.
yes, or anomaly detection. So because that can draw your eye to anything unusual happening in this enormous data lake. So essentially what happens is an AI models in the same way that chat GPT or similar, in the same way as its job is to predict the next chunk of word,
Mm,
what a abnormality detection system, its next job is to predict all of the next values that you expect from all of the equipment in the building. So if you give it that task, then you're doing something similar that the large language models did. You're working with it in a very non-opinionated way,
mhm.
looking at the data that you've got, and you're saying, is it possible to predict the next thing that happens? Which is exactly what the LLMs do with words.
Yeah.
And that is that's has a huge number of benefits. So because but the first thing that you do when you have a model trying to do that is you can tell when the real data comes in
Mhm.
where it was most wrong. and where it's most wrong is where something unusual has happened.
Mm.
So that is that's I think the right place to start with that. I mean, with the onboarding is a different thing. That's about analyzing all of the engineer labels that have been put into doing that in different ways. But if you get a model to try to predict what all of the building's going to do next, then you have a step that's similar to the step with the large language models. You're saying you're starting to get the model to understand the fundamentals of all of the data in the building. I say understand. It's interesting when we say that because we don't know if they understand at all. But what we definitely know is they can't tell us anything about the understanding.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sorry, Joe. 2 seconds. My dog is trying to get on my. This is a great one for the video, so I'll turn it into. Go on then. Oh. Mad as a box of frogs, that dog. But yeah, sorry. So, I mean, that's really interesting, Joe, and in the fact that you've had, you've been thinking about this for so long, and where it can impact the what you're doing and the service you're providing. But what about maybe some of the challenges you've faced or encountered when incorporating AI into your work processes? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose they're different from many in that, I mean, we have all of the AI tools coming in the way we code, like everybody else does, in the way that normal work is done. So that story wouldn't be that different from others. But the main one is, well, it's the opportunity from. Yeah, that's a good question. Could you ask the question again?
So I suppose it's when you're or what challenges or pains have you encountered when incorporating AI into your work processes? So
yeah, I suppose the biggest challenge is opportunity flood. So you've got a revolution like this. You've got expectations coming in from every angle. We've got our own expectations. We're sitting on this incredibly valuable treasure chest of data. What do we get out of it first? And because I mean, aside from the large language models, the actual tooling that you use to make your own models is becoming easier and easier and easier to use. That's incredibly exciting. So the challenge is what to do first. So the yeah, exactly. And as I said, we have to have our feet on the ground, right? So we're scoring all the performance, we're doing all of those basics. That's what our customers expect. But they also expect, they say, what are you doing about AI? This is the other sort of challenge, is the hype at the other end of the scale. You've got you've got sort of AI washing, as they call it.
Yeah, we had a chat with Mike about that. Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, no, indeed, and we get that. So you'll have, you might be pitching to put the product in, a new portfolio, and questionnaires come at you saying, what are you doing on AI? And you kind of want to say, we sort of are AI. What we promise you is that we're never going to ignore a tool that helps solve your problem. That we've made a lot of tools that help solve your problem. This is what our bread and butter is. But we still have to play the hype game as well.
And I know the frustration there as well of people, the promise of, it's almost like we do AI and it's amazing and it's just going to solve all your problems and you don't have to worry about anything else, sort of thing. It's sort of competitors maybe coming into the space, and the frustration you might have of going, well, it's useful in its place and where it's. It's not.
I mean, when I say we do AI, I'm talking in the widest way, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't want to miss out. So you're kind of saying, well, so we spent years capturing the data, adding meaning to it, creating a training set that we know can work for onboarding. The actual facts are that the rules-based systems are very good. And they're traceable. When you make a score, you can share how you did it. You say, here's our work. Show you, like when you're doing an exam, here's your working, right?
Yeah.
You scored my my part of the building really badly. Why?
Yeah.
So that's where all of our actual shipped product kind of gets its value.
Yes.
So and but the training set is the thing that we've got to keep our eye on. So when people say, "What are you doing on AI?" they're sort of almost asking us to do something separate, which is not on the button. And we've got to just manage that language quite carefully.
Yeah, manage expectations in the language of what's
Yeah,
going.
exactly.
It's managing the hype almost, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Sort of changing subjects, well, moving along a little bit. What about the impact of the future impact of AI within roles and people within your field? How do you think it will impact? Because that's a big fear of people in the wider sense that AI is going to take my job, type of thing. And there may be job displacements and stuff. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I have loads of thoughts on it, but from just us, further out to our customers in the industry, and then further out again. Starting with just us, I mean, it's a tool set for us. It's right on the button. It's what we do. It's just improving what we do anyway.
Yeah, it's not a massive change.
Yes, I mean the frustrating thing for us is it's like, when can we dedicate loads of resources to speculative work? I mean, this is the R&D challenge that all companies have. How much blue skies can you do?
Yeah.
So that we always have that balance. I think we make quite a good one. We're quite, as I said, feet on the ground. So it's not really. I mean, it changes some of the ways we work. And obviously we have coding assist and all those things, but not massive for us because our world is that world anyway.
Yeah.
Where then looking at our customers, though, I mean, if you think of all of the challenges to run a building, I mean, it's going to be very, very radical. From document management to all of the sort of knowledge management in a building. I mean, some of that will be good because it will help reduce chaos. Some of it will be disruptive because it will be wrong. And it won't get the But yeah, I mean, obviously, the people managing property, it's going to. I mean, there will be impacts on jobs. I think one of the going wider still. If you're asking me about the whole impact of AI, big question. I mean, one of the massive worries for me is the impact on creativity, and the value of that. And I don't mean that just in terms of, I mean in terms of the arts and music and writing, but also creative acts in software and other where you have people paid to solve pretty defined problems, and that's their bread and butter. So maybe graphic design or even software engineering or something like that, where the problems are not revolutionary, but that's where you make your bread and butter, and that allows you to use your talent to make new stuff, which they're not paying for yet because they don't get it yet.
Yeah.
Now, if you take away that income stream, because all the AIs are trotting out mediocre creative acts. I mean, they're not all mediocre, are they? Some of them are quite staggering. But if they're just routine, if we just devalue that, we say, well, I don't need any of that now. I'll get the middle ground from the AI. Well, then who's funding that talent to create the stuff that the AI, the only reason why the AI is so uncannily good is read it all.
Yeah, exactly. It's got the data.
And we made that. So how do we get the economics right? How do you value new innovations,
genuine creativity,
exactly, in the future? Innovation. That's going to be hard. We're going to have to refactor, I think, some of our economics to make sure that people who make new stuff get paid for it. Yeah.
Is there a danger of also, in a wider sense, of people getting lazy, maybe less people being creative? You're not forced to do it. You can just ask ChatGPT to do it, sort of thing, like create something new, I know what you mean, write something new, or all the budding artists out there or something like that, or whatever you're creating, whatever that creative process is. Just maybe that puts a premium on the people that do it well. A bit like, I don't know, maybe
It's
like,
a great question. Yeah, there's a sort of what's the point thing, isn't there?
yeah.
But I think that happens again and again anyway. I mean, I'm
Mm.
already sort of protecting my daughter from the fact that every idea she could have, the internet has had 100 times. We used to be in villages where you could graduate from your family to your village to a community a bit wider and wider. At each
Yeah,
level, your people are impressed by what you can do.
yeah,
Whereas now we're faced with the whole lot at once. And I think maybe AI
yeah.
is just another one of that, of
Mhm.
another instance of that. But we've got through that before. I think the main thing is the yeah, it's the income for people who create.
Mm.
Uh, and that's going to be a real issue. And obviously we're hitting all of the copyright problems and the fact that the other issue is one of siloing. Um, so the reason why we're getting right off the point of buildings and
That's all right. Just go. Let's go with it. It's fine.
let's go there. Uh,
Given
yeah,
your
so the
philosophical
the
background, Joe, I think it's only right we tap into some deeper philosophical
right, yeah, okay, good.
thoughts.
Yeah, so the what was I going to say? Yes, the models are astonishing us because they've read the whole of the internet. That internet was public commons. So we allowed it to be read by
Mm.
others. We published it.
Mm.
Well, Chat GPT is not publishing anything, or if
No.
it is, it's just a derivative
Mm.
of the public domain. Now, what the danger is, and it's that there's going to be a kind of enclosure of the commons, if you like,
Yeah.
of that public resource. So a big AI model that's read more than another one will be used more than the other one. We will all use it, but when we use it, everything we interact with it will be in the private space of the providers of that large language.
So the
Um,
data value is going to, whoever owns it
yeah,
or whatever.
so investing in the public commons will become less and less interesting. In other words, we're going to be siloed if we're not careful.
Mm.
Um, anyway, that's getting a bit wide now.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. No, 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 I love it, Joe. We've gone, from the nitty gritty out and out and out and out and out.
Yeah.
I know I've kept you a long time, so but I suppose on that point of the problems and that sort of stuff, one of the questions I wanted to ask was about ethical and practical considerations that should be kept
Hmm.
in mind when adopting AI.
Yeah. Well, the big one is CO2. Um, but that's our raison d'etre. That's
Yeah, of
one of the big
course.
big reasons for founding our company was to hunt down wastage,
Yeah.
however hard to find in these complex buildings. That's why we did it. If it's going to be a bit of an own goal if the energy requirements to train and run huge models outweighs the savings. Now, in our case, it won't. I think it depends on how much hype you do, right? So
Yeah.
the well, I mean, they're under pressure now to disclose and reduce the amount of CO2 for training models, and that debate is happening, and that's good. If we offloaded all of if it was a large language task that we had, every request to a large language model has a carbon hit.
Yes.
Because they're vast models, and they need data rooms of compute to make them work. The good news is that where the gold that I was talking about, the time series analysis, you don't need anything like large models for that. You need deep learning, but as it was
Yeah.
defined a few years ago, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
run it on one machine. You can,
Yes.
and when you're
A massive.
yes, and the reason for that is because the data is so suited to it. It's time series. They're already kind of analog amounts of temperatures and on-off signals, and it's prime for deep learning, and you don't need that extra level that the large language models have. So I think hopefully the good insight, abnormality detection, fault finding, time series analysis. Like I said, at the moment we do that through rules mainly, but the doing that through AI is not going to hit that huge carbon impact because the models are small. But I do worry about the competitive nature of large language models. They're going to have to get bigger and bigger and bigger to get to that uncanny linguistic reasoning that they can do. But they can only do that because they're so huge.
Yeah.
So that's I think the biggest ethical thing is just to make sure we haven't got a big own goal on that. And I think that's about all technology. I mean, it's about technology in general as well. You've got to hold it to account. What are you doing it for?
Yeah.
And it's got to be to reduce carbon, to make buildings more healthy to live in and nicer to work in. You've got to just always remember the original purpose and do it in the most expedient way you can. Yes, AI washing we've talked about. I suppose that's sort of ethical.
Yeah.
There's a sort of diversion that can happen if you're not careful. So you sort of swerve in order to meet a hype need.
Yeah.
And then you might swerve away
and you're
from
going
one
off in a
of your
different
core.
direction.
Yeah, I don't want to overstate that though, because these revolutions are exciting to all of us. You know, there's
there's
opportunities in all of it. And then another one, I think I kind of hinted at it earlier on ethics, would be truth and trust. I just think, it's not the. I think it's just inevitable that we're going to value, or I hope we will value the sifting and the proving and the integrity and the trust. Because as I said, there's going to be more and more claims made by machines. And we have to decide if we believe them or not.
You need to know that it's delivering what you want, and they they don't. It's like it's not like the exact science in terms of the result it gives. You can ask an AI to give me it put through back a mathematical equation the other day that was wrong. And I asked it to do some, and I was like, what? Chat, that's not right. That doesn't add up to that. That adds up to this, right? And he goes, oh yes, sorry, you're right.
That's fascinating because diversion. If you think about what's happening there, the AI has learned all the symbols that we've made on the internet and all the words. And you've given it a prompt that's using the same symbols, whereas the maths behind those symbols is what went into the original training of the neural. It's fascinating. It's like there's no necessary reason why an AI should be good at arithmetic, actually, because that's a reasoning task.
Yes, exactly. But it's my fault for not understanding the use of it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you gave it a module where it could access its own compute, then it's going to completely ace you.
Yes, of course.
On arithmetic.
Well, and then one more question, Joe, before we wrap it up. But just sort of advice maybe from you. What would you give other people in the built environment or your field when they're looking to explore or expand their use of AI?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it's keep your feet on the ground. That sounds really generalized, but what I mean by that is that it's gather the data properly, the original data, and keep it. Because that's your resource. That's the thing.
Saying at the beginning, yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's the thing you have. Data. And the AI will move forward and we'll be able to make more and more out of that data. But you've got to capture, don't lose it, basically. Don't leave the data under the carpet. And don't be distracted by the hype, I suppose, something like that.
Don't believe the hype. Yeah, exactly.
Although it's a fantastic opportunity, obviously, it's got everyone. I mean, it's a staggering revolution that we're going through.
It is. It's so exciting. It is so exciting. But you'll be interested. It's one of those things where you go, well, it's probably something's going to come up that there'll be loads of stuff that it doesn't come about that you thought it would do, that you think would be make a massive impact, and you go, oh, actually, that never happened. And then, but something else entirely, like the internet, will come up. Do you know what I mean? Something you haven't even thought of because of the capability.
Absolutely.
And someone comes at it a different way, and you go, oh wow, that's just something you didn't even think about. But interested to see what those are. But yeah, look, Joe, I won't take you any take up any more of your time, but thank you so much for such an interesting and insightful discussion and insight into what you're doing. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good chat. Thanks, Alex. All right. Bye-bye.